today in this sacred space for worship during Latine Heritage Month, a time set aside to honor the stories, histories, struggles, and wisdom of Latine communities. For some of us, this month is deeply personal. It is our heritage, our families, our ancestors. For others of us, it is a time of learning, of listening, of expanding our understanding. For some, especially now, it is a political statement and a necessary reminder that we are called to make that there is more than the dominant white culture that informs us. But for all of us, it is an invitation to reflect on how identity is formed and lived out in a complex world, and how our Unitarian Universalist faith calls us to honor the fullness of that complexity. The theme I want to reflect on today is mestizaje, a Spanish word with deep and layered meaning. Mestizaje literally means mixing. Historically, it refers to the mixing of indigenous peoples with Spanish colonizers and later African slaves brought to the Americas. But for many Latine thinkers and theologians, mestizaje is not just a historical term. It is a metaphor, a way of naming a condition of identity, of being in the world. And at the heart of our exploration today is the voice of someone whom I spent much time studying in college, Gloria Anzaldúa, poet, activist, feminist, and theologian. In her groundbreaking 1987 work, Borderlands, La Frontera, The New Mestiza, she gave language to the experience of living in between worlds, between Spanish and English, between indigenous and European, between queer and straight, between the borders of nations and of identities. She wrote, "To survive the borderlands, you must live sin fronteras, be at a crossroad." Her vision of mestizaje and the borderlands consciousness challenges us not only to see Latine identity more deeply, but also to reflect on our own lives. How do we live in between? How do we honor multiplicity, contradiction, and complexity rather than running from them? Mestizaje begins in history. After Columbus's arrival in 1492, the Americas were transformed forever. The Spanish Empire claimed vast territories across the continent, bringing soldiers, settlers, priests, and enslaved Africans. The collision with indigenous peoples created a new social order, one marked by violence, domination, and forced conversion. Children were born from these collisions, often the result of coercion, assault, or unequal relationships. By the 16th century, Spanish colonial society had elaborate caste systems to categorize these mixtures. Each category carried a social meaning, determining rights, privileges, and exclusions. For centuries, mestizaje was viewed through the lens of hierarchy: who was pure, who was mixed, who was inferior. But over time, mestizaje also came to be reimagined as a source of cultural richness. By the 20th century, in Mexico especially, mestizaje was recast as the foundation of national identity. Writers like Jose Vasconcelos celebrated the cosmic race, a vision of blending that would transcend divisions. Yet this narrative was still fraught. To celebrate mestizaje too easily can gloss over the violence of colonization and erase indigenous or African identities in favor of a myth of unity. And yet to reject mestizaje outright risks denying the lived reality of millions who embody multiple. Anzaldúa steps into this tension. She names mestizaje not as a neat solution, but as an honest recognition of complexity. She insists that to be mestiza is to carry contradictions, the pain of being pulled between ways, the ambiguity of not belonging fully anywhere. She knew this personally. Born in Harlingen in the Rio Grande Valley of South Texas, she grew up in a world shaped by borders between Mexico and the US, between Spanish and English, between cultures that overlapped and collided. She experienced racism, sexism, homophobia, and cultural marginalization. But she also found power in these in-between spaces. In Borderlands La Frontera, she describes the new mestiza consciousness. She has a plural personality. She operates in a pluralistic mode. Nothing is thrust out. The good, the bad, and the ugly, nothing rejected, nothing abandoned. This is a version of identity as integration, not by erasing differences, but by holding them together. It is a way of being that does not resolve contradictions, but learns to live with them. Think about that for a moment. How often are we told by culture, by politics, by religion, especially now, that we must choose? Choose a side, choose an identity, choose loyalty to one group over another. And yet, most of us, if we are honest, live in between. We may be bilingual or bicultural. We may belong to more than one faith tradition. We may live at the intersection of race, gender, sexuality, and class in ways that cannot be categorized. The mestiza consciousness says you do not have to choose. You can be both and. You can live at the borderlands, and it can be a site of creativity, resilience, even freedom. But Ansaldúa is clear. Living in the borderlands is not easy. It is painful. It means never fully belonging anywhere. It means being questioned, erased, or exoticized. And yet she insists that mestizaje can also be resistance. In societies built on binaries, white, black, male, female, citizen, immigrant, straight, queer, the mestiza consciousness is disruptive. It says categories are not enough to contain me. I will not let myself be reduced. This is a political act. To claim mestizaje is to resist systems that demand purity, hierarchy, and exclusion. It is to insist that complexity itself is sacred. We see this today in the struggles of Latine communities in the US, fighting against deportations, against walls, against being told to go back to where you came from, even when where you came from is here. We see it in queer and trans Latine activists who embody borderlands identities and refuse erasure. To honor Latine Heritage Month is not just to celebrate culture, it is to join in this resistance. To recognize that the wisdom of mestizaje calls us to stand against forces that flatten and divide. And this, my friends, is where we as Unitarian Universalists can recognize ourselves, because our faith is mestizaje too. Think of our history. We were born from the crossings of Christianity, reason, enlightenment, humanism, transcendentalist spirituality, social justice activism, world religions, and the ongoing struggles for justice across race, gender, and sexuality. We have never been one thing. We have always been a mixture, a crossroads. We proclaim multiple sources of truth, direct experience, prophetic voices, wisdom of the world's faith, science and reason, earth-centered traditions. We are not either or, we are both and. In this sense, mestizaje is not foreign to us. It is part of who we are. But Ansaldúa pushes us further. It is not enough to simply claim multiplicity. We must also learn to live with the tensions it brings, to embrace ambiguity, to resist the temptation to force resolution, to honor contradictions as holy. Is this not what we mean when we say we are a covenantal people? We are not bound by creed, but by the practice of walking together in our differences. Our covenantal life is mestizaje, holding many truths, many paths, and weaving them into shared community. So in this Latine Heritage Month, what gift might Mestizaje bring to us as a UU people? It brings us the gift of honesty, that our lives are never simple. It brings us the gift of resilience, that complexity can be strength, not weakness. It brings us the gift of imagination, that borderlands can be places of creativity and transformation. And perhaps most importantly, it brings us the gift of solidarity. Because to embrace mestizaje is to stand with those whose identities are under attack. It is to proclaim that immigrants, queer folk, Black and brown lives, trans and non-binary people, all who live in between are sacred. Ansaldúa ends Borderlands La Frontera with a vision of transformation. She imagines a new mestiza consciousness that embraces multiplicity, that refuses to reject any part of itself. What if we, as a congregation, could live this vision? What if we could be crossroads people living sin fronteras, without borders, embracing the fullness of life? My friends, that is the invitation before us to honor Latine Heritage Month not only with celebration, but with transformation, to become borderland churches, to be mestiza communities, to live multiplicity as sacred. Let us take up that call. Let us be crossroads. Let us be people of the borderlands who carry complexity as a gift and who build beloved community in all its fullness. May we cause it to be so. Blessed be. Amen. Shalom. Assalamu alaikum. Namaste. Thank you all so much.